Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my video discussing the 14th Dev Diary for Age of Wonders 4. This one is covering sieges, and I have been pretty excited to know more about sieges ever since we saw the launch trailer. There was a couple things where they showed the towers and some other things involved with the sieges, like I think onagers, little siege um, projects that you can make to make the sieges a little bit faster or like easier or more interesting. But we haven't actually gotten to see too many of them in all of the hours of gameplay that the devs have shown off. I think they've done one siege, which happened just a few hours before recording this, and I believe that's it. I could be wrong, but I think that's all that we've actually gotten to see, other than what came out in trailers, like the launch trailer, and I think one or two other things. Maybe like the pre-order trailer had some details about like how you could go run a siege against another player if you wanted to. One of the first interesting things I saw in here was how they mentioned that in Planetfall you would get these colony militia units to make it easier for defenders to deal with attackers. In Age of Wonders 3, I found a lot of the time I was leaving a lot of units near my city so that they could defend them if the city did get attacked, and that was not optimal because those units would take upkeep, and militia was designed to address that problem. But one of the unintended consequences of having militia units was that there was just kind of like a lot of units in fights. It led to them dragging out a little bit. And according to the devs, they found that a lot of players were kind of tired of this fighting those types of battles and just auto resolving them because of the sheer number of units. I don't know if that's the reason why people are auto resolving them. I think it's because they just thought they were going to win the fight, and it's not always worth doing. But if you're playing in a multiplayer match against somebody else, like there's almost no reason to auto resolve. I don't see a lot of people using that because they're using that button because they found that yeah, no, basically it would make things easier in Planetfall. Um, in the end, they came up with the siege system, which meant that defenders would have time in order to get their units back to the city after an attacker showed up on their border ready to attack the city. And then they played around with a couple different systems to make it so that attackers could speed up that process. They could invest in doing that better, and defenders could invest in defending their city so that they could do that better. And there's some pretty interesting things that they actually carried over from Age of Wonders Planetfall, like the turret system. Basically, like here we can see, I think, three locations where turrets could go. They're all in a line, and I believe every map has four locations where turrets could go. And one interesting thing Voxel has brought up, I think, in multiple places, is that if you destroy a hex that a turret is on, if you like take out the battlements with a hazard or something that does damage to those types of uh, obstacles, I believe they're called, then the turret falls through the battlement and it dies, which is pretty funny, pretty cool way to play the game. But there's also turrets that heal and do other interesting things. I think that was mentioned right around here, so we're getting to that. If you want better defenses, you can upgrade from the palisade walls to stone walls, and those have more health, less breaches, other cool things like that. And if you don't have palisades, I believe you don't get to interact with the siege mechanic. So it's something where you're going to want at least the palisade walls on your cities. It basically means you want those on your city so that you have time to respond to things and you can actually send your units elsewhere. Um, but yeah, here we have a special looking turret. Some of these little things will make it so that you will heal your other units in the fight. Some of them will buff your ranged attacks, making it so they do either more like physical damage or more magical damage. Sometimes you get more range or accuracy, and other things can like set things on fire, which is pretty cool. I think that this is going to be a fun little system to play around with. Right here, this says that this spire will heal undead units within a certain range. So yeah, that's like the Oathbound thing, but it's specifically for the undead, which is pretty cool. I can't wait to see what else we haven't gotten to play around with or gotten to see yet, because that's just a little taste of a larger system with a lot of choices. Right here we have you can make it so you can sunder resistance, making it easier to do magic damage with your magic attacks, I guess. or is it any attack? Adds this combat during a siege. Yeah, so it'll make any attack, make it so that you can sunder resistance, making it easier to do more magic damage. You get extra range and ignores obscured. So if they're standing in foliage, it's easier to hit them. Pretty good in general. Not like a bad modifier to get on your units at all. This picture shows off how you could do caltrops. You could throw those down, which will make it so that if enemies walk towards the city, if they go through the breaches, then they're going to start getting slowed and they're going to start bleeding, taking damage over time. They're not going to be able to move as far, and they're going to take damage over time. This is a big deal for melee units, less so for ranged units, although that can keep a ranged unit from moving forward and getting the higher percentage shot that it wants to take. I forget exactly how it says caltrops work. I think they just spawn in front of the walls. I don't think it's like a turret or anything. Yeah, it just looks like they happen at the beginning of combat. And I don't know how many hexes they actually occupy. It looks like quite a few if I'm reading this image right. After that, we have some stuff talking about fortification health and how you can increase that to make it harder for a city to get sieged down. You can also increase the rate that you siege down a place by making those siege projects. What else is here? Yeah, it's visible to everybody. It's public knowledge so that you can make a plan before you invest in going over there. You can even check out what kind of walls they're going to have just by looking at the models. I think on this one of them is probably stone walls. I think on the left, stone tree would make sense that it would have, well, actually, it's only got 20 defenses, so this might be palisades, and the one on the right might be stone walls. It's a little hard for me to tell because I haven't played the game yet. I haven't seen these things enough yet. But that's my assumption based off what that text is saying and the image there. One is probably palisade and one is probably stone walls, or something like stone walls, maybe better. So now we've looked at the defender side. Let's look at the attacker's side. When you go to attack a city, you'll see something like this where you can put in 2 siege projects. And right now it's saying it's going to take 8 turns to breach that 80 fortification. And that's because they do 10 siege like damage or like fortification damage every turn. And it's going to take 8 turns to do the 80 damage they need to do. If they do some siege projects, I can speed that up a little bit. Um, let's see, fortification is damage is determined by those units. You can also get it's determined by those projects, but you can also get other units like the giants or iron golems, which will give you more siege damage. And I think there's other things like spells that you can use to make it easier to siege things down. What else do we have in this part? Some things about headlong salt making it. Yeah, just you can get through these thresholds a little bit quicker if you take something like that. We didn't get to see a lot of these in stream or previously, so it's cool that they kind of pulled out some of the more interesting ones to put into one image here. One of the things you can do if you research it, all these things are, I think, basically things you have to research. They're not like the default ones that you get. We did see a little bit of that in the stream. If you want, you can make it so that you start with 2 mind controlled units. That's a big deal in a fight. Taking other people's actions and making them yours is a big deal unless they have a way to dispel that mind control. Which if they do, then I don't know if this is worth 150 gold and 150 mana. Seems interesting, but I really like the idea of using subjugating raid, because that means that you don't actually have to win the siege. You can just go siege a city for a little bit of time and then take some pops off of them, run away, go to a different city, to make them move their armies over there, but don't actually engage with them, run to a different city, do the same thing, over and over and over again. Could be kind of fun. Could be something that you could actually exploit, I think, pretty a lot, especially if maybe you're playing with somebody who is hostile to you, but isn't really truly hostile. They're just working with you. You're making deals to let you steal their pops for something else in exchange. I'm not sure how that would be optimal, but I think the more people you have, the more food you need to grow pop. So there's probably a strategy inside of there. Arcane Maelstrom is massive. Being able to make it so the turrets don't do any damage is okay, but it's really what's really cool is 3 random units are going to take damage every turn, and I don't think there's a limit on how many turns that will be around for. So that's just there. You're just gonna have to deal with that if like somebody uses this against you in a siege. I think this will make whatever tree this is from a little bit better. I think that's like an astral affinity. It looks kind of purple, kind of bluish, so that would make sense to me. Undermining the wall makes it just so that there's more breaches. That's probably better than it sounds. Just having more paths to walk through will give you more opportunities to avoid the like kill zones. So I think that that's not bad. It's only 75 gold, so compared to the others, it's not supposed to be as good. And yeah, I don't think it is quite as good, but who knows? Maybe it's one that because it's cheaper, people end up taking it more often. There's like a cost benefit analysis you have to make with those types of choices. So in this image, we see that the spell jammer is making it so that people can't cast spells in the city. While you're sieging the city, you can try and go burn down the spell jammer. That's what this one unit down here is trying to do, but they're outside of the reinforcement range of the other unit. So if you're doing that, you're opening that guy up to a opportunity, and it's supposed to be a more dynamic interaction. If you're willing to take that risk, you might get picked off, but it's supposed to be something that you're weighing in your mind when you're going into a siege. And I think that's cool. I think that's interesting that they took that into consideration when they designed these mechanics, these systems. After that, it talks about if you're defending a city that's being sieged, then you're going to have a minus 50% penalty on all those resources, meaning that you can't just wait until the last turn. When I first heard about this, I was like, oh yeah, you just wait until the last turn. But having this penalty means that there is quite a big incentive for pulling somebody off of your city. Sure, the other player is wasting that army's time there, but if you're losing more resources than they are spending on upkeep, it's worse for you. You have to take that in consideration. Waiting can be worth it um, if it allows you to get more units in the fight and actually win the fight, or if it costs the other player more to run the siege than it costs you to just draw it out. After that, we have some stuff about Rally of the Lieges and Empire rights can be used to quickly raise an army. There was one I talked about, I think, last week in one of my videos that is a way to get tier 3 armies out of your cities. Pretty cool. It's like one unit per city, so you'd have to move a few units over to the city that's being sieged from your other cities. That's assuming you have multiple cities. In the stream they did earlier today, I think they got their second city like turn 15. So, it may be that this game could be kind of a harder one to go get a bunch of cities and have a wider empire. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. It's not that long until we'll all get to play around with these systems. Right here, they're just showing off Rally of the Lieges. I forget if you can say rally in this city that's not my capital or if it just goes, um, yeah, it says recruit to throne city, reinforce vassal. You can like send them to a vassal, I think, if you wanted to. Interesting. So yeah, you can use that if pretty easily if they're sieging your capital. If not, it's going to take some time to run your rally of liege units over to the other side of your empire where the siege is happening. So now we have another image about a siege. I think this just looks glorious. It's got like these little catapults or onagers on towers. It's fun. It looks like a good time, and I like the cosmetics that they added in here. I think they spent a lot more time and attention trying to make these locations feel lived in. I believe there's a little bit of text in here somewhere about that. Yeah, they can initiate the fight once it reaches 0. The defenders might be able to rally out earlier than that. I believe there's something about that. Yeah, they're saying this like it's challenging, making an interesting battle map that's fair, doesn't look boring. Um, and I like it what I've seen. This seems like the prettiest battle map we've seen in any other Age of Wonders game. And I'm excited to see more. I feel like we've only gotten a little taste of all the little things that we can see, all the environments that we can see in throughout the game, because there's a lot of different things like Arctic and desert and arid. Oh boy, what else? Fertile woodlands. And I don't. Yeah, we've only seen one siege, so I can't wait to see what the other locations look like when they're being sieged. After that, what do we have here? Yeah, there's something about demolisher being able to create new breaches. I think this is something they talked about previously. But they didn't mention how that breaches now start at the beginning of the battle, unlike previous Age of Wonders games, until like this section right here. So yeah, when you start a fight against somebody with walls in Age of Wonders 3, they were at a massive advantage because you had to tear down the walls. The fact that there are breaches here at the beginning of the battle, because you've been there for a few turns, I think makes it easier to go on the offense against people with walls and units. I mean, if they have no units and the walls don't make a big, they don't make any difference. But yeah, I think you get the idea here. It's interesting that they put that in there at the very beginning. I think that it'll be fun to play around with. And it does, you know, like I said, it does make it feel more lived in. The all the little cosmetics, the breaches in the walls. Um, yeah, excited to see a lot more and actually play around with it in person. We got some pretty fun streams coming up this weekend by a couple different influencers. I think I'm going to be watching Potato McWhiskey's one on Saturday. So I hope to see you there. Have a good one.